How do IHL treaty loopholes impact humanitarian protection? Imagine a world where rules meant to protect civilians in war zones are like safety nets with holes. That's what loopholes in international humanitarian law can feel like. These gaps can make a big difference in how well civilians are protected during conflicts. International humanitarian law operates through treaties like the Geneva Conventions and their additional protocols. These treaties set the rules for how wars should be fought and how civilians, and those no longer fighting, should be treated. But the way countries interpret and apply these rules can sometimes weaken their protective power. For example, governments and military forces often use legal arguments to justify actions that go against the original intent of protecting civilians. They might claim that civilian casualties are acceptable collateral damage or that certain attacks are proportional, even when they cause excessive harm. This selective interpretation can lead to civilians suffering more than they should. Another issue is how these treaties handle situations like sieges or blockades. While they say civilians should get it and be able to leave dangerous areas, in reality, military considerations often make safe passage impossible. Sometimes, the rules requiring the besieging side to allow relief supplies only if they control how they are distributed. That's not always practical in real war zones. Plus, protections differ depending on whether a conflict is international or non-international. Civilians in some conflicts might not have the same safeguards, creating gaps in their safety. Enforcement is another weak spot. The Geneva Conventions say countries should prosecute violations, but many don't follow through. Some states lack the laws or political will to hold violators accountable. This means where crimes can go unpunished, and civilians pay the price. Even simple things like marking hospitals with protected emblems can be ignored or overlooked, making it easier for attacks to happen. Humanitarian access can also be blocked using treaty language. For instance, military forces might refuse to allow aid convoys into conflict zones, claiming they need permission or impose conditions that make delivering supplies impossible. This leaves vulnerable populations without food, medicine, or shelter. And when violations happen, there's often no consistent investigation. Without proper accountability, violations become routine, and civilians continue to suffer. All these loopholes weaken the core goal of international humanitarian law, to protect those caught in conflict. When parties interpret rules to serve their own interests or ignore them altogether, civilians become the main victims. Closing these gaps requires stronger enforcement, clearer rules that prioritize civilian safety, and political will to hold violators accountable. Without these steps, the treaties remain just on paper, while civilians face the harsh realities of war with fewer protections than they deserve.